Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Her Story in the Making. I believe we're on episode 7 now. Time flies when you're having fun. And we are joined tonight by an NFL contributor from Heavy Sports, the co-host of the Off the Bench podcast. We have Madi Kroll. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing tonight?
Thank you for having me. I am vibing out tonight. I'm so excited about this. I've been looking forward to it for it feels like weeks now. We scheduled out because of my schedule, and I'm just so excited to be here.
I love that you're here. And I'll just kick it right off. I mean, you've had a very, very busy 2 weeks. You were at the Senior
Yeah.
Bowl, you were at the Super Bowl. I
hmm
saw your NFL awards picture looking absolutely statuesque out there. Lovely.
Hey,
Um,
hair and makeup goes a long ways. Let me tell you, those people know what they're doing.
I will vouch for that as well. But you're beautiful anyway. But how was that experience? You got to interview so many people, you got to see so many new things, and even talk to Jason Kelsey about possibly winning a Grammy. So
I
how was
mean,
that?
when I tell you I had heart palpitations, I was like, I can die now. My greatest dreams have come true. I love Jason Kelsey. Anybody who follows me knows I'm obsessed with him. But no, that experience was life changing to say the least. It was absolutely incredible, and I know that that's so basic to say, but there's really no words that can describe the type of feeling that I had. It was incredible to be around. I didn't have a voice thanks to Senior Bowl, so I lost my voice somewhere in between Alabama and Arizona. And so people who listen to my interviews, I apologize in advance. What's up, Tootsie Pop? But no, it was an incredible time, and I hope to be in Vegas next year for the Super Bowl.
That is going to be so fun. Can you imagine? I mean, Vegas is fun as is, but a Super Bowl in Vegas is going to be absolutely off the charts.
I
And
mean, we're all gonna have to start pinching our pennies now to make it happen.
yep, let's start setting up some GoFundMe's, some
Yeah.
Venmos, like drop that Venmo in the chat. And you guys in the chat, if y'all have any questions for Madi that you want answered throughout the show, throw those in there and we will try to get to them. And we just appreciate everybody being here.
For
So
sure.
I just love the show and I love everybody on it. So we're just gonna start really kind of back at the beginning and with I like to ask everyone this question just because it gives everybody an idea of where your love of the game started. So where did
Aw.
your love of football begin? Very early, I'm told.
Very, very early. Yeah, I got to meet Troy Aikman when I think I was like 3 years old, and since then I was obsessed. I was obsessed with the Dallas Cowboys at the beginning because I thought Troy Aikman was gonna be my husband, right? Because every 3-year-old would dream of that. It was during their dynasty, and I just kinda just fell in love with it. My parents are big basketball fans, so both my parents played at the collegiate level, and what up? It's fine. We're happy you're here. So both of my parents were big basketball people. Football was something that was a little bit different, and I liked that. I liked that it was kind of like my own thing. And then I had a stepdad who would play backyard football with us. You know, all the little boys in the neighborhood would come over, and I actually started to learn the rules of the game. And I was like, wow, this is actually really interesting. It's a lot more, it's a lot harder than what you would expect. And I remember having that thought when I was like 6 or 7 of just like, wow, this is actually kind of hard, but it's fun. So I think that that's where my love for the game actually started is when I was between the ages of like 3 and 7.
Well, and I love that you were so tiny when you started, because that's one of my favorite earliest memories too, is watching the Troy Aikman games with my dad
Yeah.
back in the dynasty days. And that was just so
Mhm.
wonderful. And unfortunately, I did not grow out of my Cowboys fandom. You did.
Ah,
So
I
kudos
did.
to
I
you.
did.
Kudos to you for doing that. But along with that, you also had a very early experience in getting involved in fantasy football. So when did you first start playing fantasy football? It was in middle school for
In
extra
middle school.
credit?
Yeah, and this is so funny because I didn't know what fantasy football was, but I knew that I needed extra credit in math. And so on the first day, our coach Callahan, which she was my basketball coach, so already I was intimidated by her, and I didn't want to do bad in her class. And math is hard, right? And it was an advanced math class, so I was just very intimidated. And from day one, she said there will be extra credit opportunities in the form of fantasy football. If you'd like to learn more, let me know. And so that was my first experience. But I won my league that year through, I know, with all the nerds. It was so much fun. But I was like, this is so cool. This was so much fun. Granted, we didn't have all the fancy like apps and all of that good stuff. I was literally like 7th grade, I think it was. So we had to do everything by hand, and like we had like the clippings, and you could of course look on the internet, but it wasn't like it was today. But I was just like, this is insane, and I love it. I just liked winning, and it was a lot. It was a lot of fun.
The winning is the best part of fantasy football, and to get that taste of winning at such a young age just basically makes you hooked.
It's addicting.
Yeah,
It's addicting for sure.
absolutely. So since you did have to take notes and scores like on pencil and paper and chart it, did
Mhm.
your stepdad kind of help you out getting kind of involved in it, or did you already have enough knowledge to kind of do this yourself, being a fan?
No, I had I would say I had 0 help, but I knew enough to know that I knew the players that I wanted to pick. And I think I was at an advantage because everybody else had played fantasy football in the league that I was in, and I felt like they were overthinking everything. Like in retrospect, I think that they were just like stressing themselves out, and I didn't know any better. So I just went out and picked guys that I was a fan of, just from watching the game, and it kind of worked out in my favor.
I love
But I had
that.
no idea what I was doing, if that's what you're asking. I was like, I was
Well,
on my own.
that makes the win even better, in my opinion, that, you just went with your gut and knew the players to pick. But getting started in that young age, has that kind of helped frame how you analyze fantasy football down the line? Now we do have all these fantasy sites with all of these different tools and different things to do, or to analyze the numbers. But since you got
Mhm.
started doing that on your own, how has that shaped your analysis?
To be honest, I don't think that it has. I think that now I understand the game, from an X's and O standpoint more than obviously what I did whenever I was young. And I think that I actually view the game completely different because that's how I make my picks. I make my picks off of offensive lines and defensive lines and off of the schedule. Who are these teams going to be facing? Like I look at it at the very beginning like that versus just player talent. So I actually think I play fantasy football a little bit different than most people do.
You do, and I love that perspective because somebody like me who is so stat-based and stat-oriented, to be honest, I know if a team has a good offensive line, but I don't necessarily know the schemes, and I think knowing that adds an extra layer. And talking about the X's and O's, I mean, you had a really hands-on approach in learning that. You
Good.
were the lead trainer, of your high school's football team. Your stepdad was a defensive line coach. If we've kind of touched on it a little bit in that answer, but how did that help you hone your craft?
It helped me more than I can even explain. I had a really cush situation in high school, I'll say that. So, I quit basketball my freshman year, and my parents were just kind of like, "Listen, like you got to do something. You can't just sit around." And my stepdad gave me the opportunity. I was a trainer in 8th grade, but it was like more of the what you would expect to be like a water girl type of thing. When I got into high school and I decided I wanted to go through with it, I went to the camps. I had certifications where I could wrap ankles, I could tape wrists, all of the things. And so my freshman year was kind of just like a learning experience. By my sophomore year, I was promoted to lead trainer, which was awesome, but it also came with a lot more responsibility. So I spent my Saturdays and Sundays spot scrubbing jerseys and doing laundry, washing all the uniforms, making sure all the guys were prepared for the next week. With that, all the coaches were in the coach's office Saturday and Sunday breaking down film, preparing, getting game plans together. So, in the time that all of the jerseys were being washed, I was sneaking in and listening to what they had to say. And it was the best learning experience I could have ever asked for because once you start learning the game on such an intricate level like that, when you're starting to realize, okay, well, they're not just talking about what's in front of them, they're actually figuring out what worked for other teams, what didn't, how can we exploit weaknesses, and then obviously capitalize on our advantages. It just makes you see the game in a completely different way. And I learned so much in 3 years just being able to kind of hang out in the locker room and watch the coaches do what they do.
And I imagine that that's helped you with things like the Senior Bowl, with, the combine. You
Yeah.
see things that not necessarily every fantasy analyst sees. And so I think that's just such a unique perspective going into this. But you didn't get your start at necessarily wanting to be a fantasy analyst. Tell us a little bit about how you got your start and how it came about.
This is such a funny question because I'm almost embarrassed to say, but I just really lucked out into an amazing situation. I tell people all the time, I feel like I'm the luckiest person alive. I just kind of feel like good things kind of follow me around. And this was one of them. I was asked to be on the Coaches Fantasy Podathon podcast. It was the day of, I think it's Steven messaged me and he was just like, hey, do you have time to pop on to a podcast tonight? Blah, blah, blah. And I didn't know what it was, but I was like, oh, this sounds like a fun opportunity. So I hopped on and ended up chatting it up with Rumboy's Robbie, who was on the same screen with me. And then after the show, he actually invited me onto his show. And I got to do that. And it was an amazing experience. And then he messaged me that night and he was like, hey, listen, just looking out for you. You've got to have a Twitter. You need a Twitter. Everybody who's in this world has a Twitter, blah, blah, blah. I think you do great, but you got to have a Twitter. So I made a Twitter and then the rest is history.
I love that so much. Did you only get your exposure from that initial pod, or did you continue to write more, or did you just tweet kind of out into the void like I did
Yeah.
about games, or was it like a combination of things?
It was, I mean, honestly, I think that I had some pretty hot takes on Rumboy's Robbie at first. So people were kind of coming at me for my takes and then I just defended myself. So that's kind of how the Twitter thing started. And then halfway through that season, Dr. Roto reached out to me and offered me a column. So I wrote In the Trenches, where I evaluated fantasy players based off of offensive and defensive line matchups, and how to exploit that. And so that was really fun. And then I also got to do a show with the lovely Sam Holt, which was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing you and Sam's show in the beginning, and I was like, "Who are these ladies? Like, they are so smart and so talented.
Oh,
I wanna
she's
I wanna, like,
amazing.
know them." And then to get the experience with, sharing a panel with you at the expo, I it's
That was
just
so much fun.
it
That
was
was so much
perfect.
fun.
I
Yeah.
hope for those of you who weren't at the expo, we were the very first panel of the day, or one of the very first, and we were in one of the very small rooms. It was
Very
standing
small.
room only, and ended up spilling out over into the hallway. So if you were
Mhm.
at the expo this year, I think that possibly we will have a much bigger room and much more space for analysts and your
We got a lot
questions.
to
And
say. We need more time.
it's true. It is true. There's so many questions that we just can't get to, and, you know, but it kind of attests to this space and how much it's growing, especially with, the number of women contributors in it, and
Which we
and
love. I'm
we
obsessed
totally
with
love it.
that. Yeah.
And the support by the existing
Mhm.
content creators that make it possible for us newbies to be in there. You mentioned that you wrote a column over at Dr. Roto. So you've done columns, you've done podcasts, you do your TikToks, which I love. I think
Oh
your
my
TikToks are
gosh.
hilarious.
My
I'm
TikToks
way
are
too
ridiculous. It's fine.
I'm way too afraid to even make a TikTok, so I don't.
Girl,
But
you gotta get out there. Put it out there.
it'll happen one of these days, and it'll just
Yeah.
be the most off the wall shit that you've ever seen in your life, and then that'll be my brand, but until that point, I'm just gonna hide in the shadows. But, what is your favorite content to produce, and kind of how do you approach creating, that different types of media?
To be honest with you, my favorite type of content to create is podcasting. And I think that it's because what I love about football, honestly, I could sit down and break down film all day long. So I watch the games Thursday, Sunday, obviously Monday too, but Monday during the day, I spend my days breaking down film from the games that I was most excited about. I like to figure out the ins and outs. I like to try to see patterns. What are they changing? And try to get some predictions going. The NFL is so intricate, you literally never get bored. So my favorite type of content has to be the podcasting format just because I'm able to kind of talk through my mindset on that. I love fantasy. Sometimes I think that I can come out and say like, "Hey, I like this guy," but to be able to explain how I got there is a little bit difficult, especially through a tweet or just a quick little TikTok video. So I would definitely say that podcasting format is my favorite for sure.
I think and then you get those kind of off the rails moments too that make it so much fun, and you kind of
Yeah,
get to
and
interact with
everybody
other
knows I go
people.
off the rails. Yeah.
Well, you and me both, sister. Um,
And I love being in front of a camera. I'm not gonna lie. I eat this up. I enjoy being able to it's almost like having friends that you don't have to, like, actually get ready for, you know?
it's yeah, it really
Yeah.
is.
It's so much fun.
I and that explains also why you're so good at TikTok because you're so comfortable in front of the camera and everything just falls into place. You're obviously talented, whatever
Oh,
content you
thank
create,
you.
but we definitely enjoy your video content. Is there a favorite moment in particular of your career? We talked about your favorite type of content. Now we're going to narrow it down to a favorite moment if you have one.
Hands down, being within breathing distance of Jason Kelsey, and then I made him laugh. Like,
You
that
were
was
so close. You were so
I was
close.
so close, and I was so nervous he wasn't gonna be able to hear me, so I felt like I was, like, screaming at him. I didn't have a voice, but as soon as I got it out, he literally laughed, and the whole panel, he was just very just, like it was the same questions over and over again. I think he almost, like, got bored, so when I hopped up there and he laughed at me, I was like, "I've made it." Like, I don't think I can ever top this. I just have so much respect for him and the type of player he is, what he does is just absolutely insane on the field. And he's funny and he can sing. Are you kidding me? So the fact that he laughed at me, I was just like, my life is made. That's hands down the best moment I've experienced in my career so far.
I'm not gonna lie, I lived vicariously and felt that joy through your TikTok. When I saw that TikTok and saw just how happy you made him, like, I'm not gonna lie, I giggled in bed, when I was just scrolling
I
TikTok. It
was
was
so
a wonderful
smitten with
moment.
it. I watched it over and over and over again. I was like, okay, this is obsessive and you need to stop. But it was a great moment. And I'm so thankful that I had that opportunity.
And now you have that forever. Like
Yes, with my terrible voice. People were messaging me and they were like, "What is wrong with you? What's wrong with your voice?" And I was like,
It's
"I don't even
Phoenix and
care."
there's
Yeah.
it feels like billions of people here. So that's
Yes.
what's wrong with my voice.
Mind your business. I made Jason Kelsey laugh. Who cares what
Yeah,
I said? Yeah.
exactly. Well, speaking about the amount of people there, for anybody who hasn't gone through that process, because I'm really curious to know what that process of getting up to interview the athletes is like, and just, I guess, from start to finish, like where does this media journey take you when you're at an event like the Super Bowl?
Super Bowl is pure chaos. It's just everybody was in there. What's crazy is you would have these like crazy, insanely popular athletes just kind of walking around. So people would be stopped in the middle of the walkways trying to get interviews with them. And then you had the players that were up on podiums, and you literally had to fight your way to the front to be able to get close enough to ask them a question. And then you had fans screaming at you in the background, like, ask them this, ask them that. But it was absolutely insane. I will say the NFL knows how to put on a snack bar, like a food bar. They had drinks, they had all kinds of snacks. I was like, this is amazing. Like I could do this every day of my life. The foodie in me was very impressed, I will say that. But no, absolute chaos just the entire week. There were so many people there. So many people had to get stories and it was a lot, but it was really fun.
Was it like, oh gosh, what am I trying to say? Trying to get to the front row at Coachella, maybe, or if you're a festival concert girl, like like I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah, absolutely. Like people were fighting to get to the front. The thing is I learned this year that if you want to get close to a quarterback, like you have to line up an hour before they're even there and you just kind of have to stay there. That's just the way it is. So I didn't make it up close to any of the quarterbacks until we actually got later in the week and they had their press conferences, but just the access that you get is incredible. Absolutely incredible.
And I love that Gator said, Maddie pushing her way through a crowd seems like a sight to see,
No,
which I will agree with that.
I was creative. I did hit my hands and knees at one point to like get through somebody. But really it's just like you just kind of have to squirm your way. And it's a little bit easier when you're one person versus the big camera crew people. They have a little bit harder of a time.
That's true. I didn't even think about that. Oh my gosh, how does that even work? Well, I'm going to file that away in my brain for a
Yeah.
question for me to deal with at
Bring the
another time.
bows.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll switch gears a little bit here. We've talked a little bit about the highs in your career, but with every new career change and especially in this industry, there come challenges. So, what challenges did you face early in your career, not only being new to the space, but specifically as a woman in a primarily male dominated field? And kind of how did you deal with that?
To be honest with you, I think that I've been fortunate in the okay, I'm just gonna shoot you straight here. I was in a relationship that I kind of felt like I couldn't be myself. And so this whole football side of me, I really suppressed. I was out with people who were telling me, like, hey, it's embarrassing when you talk about football, like you need to kind of calm down with it. And so for a long time, like just really shoved that side of me down. And I was not ashamed of it, but I definitely didn't share it with people. I didn't express it. And so once that ended, I love therapy. I went to therapy. I got myself right. I got my confidence back. And I just kind of went into it. That was right before I kind of got into the fantasy football side of things. And I was just like, you know what? I know what I know. I'm good at what I do. I love this game. And I'm just going to approach it like that. And if people don't vibe with me, then there's a literally thousands of other fantasy analysts that they can go follow and be friends with. I'm just not going to be everybody's cup of tea. So I think going into it with the mentality of just like, I know that I won't be for everybody, but I'm going to do me and do what makes me happy was really the best approach that you can have coming into this, because of course you get the people who are in your DMs and talking trash, but for me I'm just like these 40-year-old men who think that they can hurt my feelings. It's really funny because I'm like, bro, I was a teenage girl in high school. Like, if you think that the words you say to me will trump what those hateful girls in high school said, like, get out of here. Nah. So I think that actually being a female is a little bit of a benefit in my eyes for what I'm doing. I think that you just really have to believe in yourself and not care what anybody else says, right?
And I love that you brought that up, that people made you feel like you had to suppress your love of the game, because
Mhm.
I've kind of been in a similar situation where, you go out to the bar or wherever you're watching the game. I worked in sports bars for years and years and years. So that was
Mhm.
kind of my vibe. And the guys were able to yell, but as soon as you started yelling, it was like, what is
Oh
she
yeah.
yelling for? Tone it down, do this, do
Mhm.
that. And I think that that's really empowering that you recognize that this is what you're good at and screw the haters. I think that that's a really important lesson for people out there to learn.
It is, and I hope people hear me out on that because I'm not gonna lie, when I was in my situation, I feel like I heard people saying that, and I was I was really hyped up in high school. I knew what I was talking about. I mean, I would talk to the coaches about different schemes, about different play calls, like why they made the decisions that they've made. So I knew I knew my stuff, and I had that confidence. And somewhere along the way, I let somebody get in my head, and it took me a long time to get to the point where I was just like, why? What's the point? And so hopefully by hearing this, somebody else out there will just say, like, screw it. It doesn't matter. If you're not able to be completely yourself and the person you're with or the people around you don't deserve to be around you because they're not even getting the best part of you, you know?
I think, yeah, that advice is so, so important. And I always tell all my guests, I try to take something away because um, I definitely have a lot of growing to do. And I think that that tidbit that you just shared, being true to yourself and not letting somebody else's opinion of you get to you is definitely very, very, very important, especially in this space. And the bigger you get and
Yeah.
the more trolls you get on Twitter. So, what advice would you give others, aside from this advice, who are trying to create a career in the fantasy sports world? Or what do you wish you know or wish you knew when you had started out?
I think the best advice to be taken is to just get yourself out there. Whatever content you want to create, start with something, but be genuine. don't do what you think will hit, or don't say what you think everybody wants to hear. Just be genuine, because from my experience, people know when you're being yourself and when you're not. And it's 10 times better when people like you for you, because what's going to happen is you'll end up attracting people who have the same mindset as you, or who like to see you grow in that way. But if you are trying to change yourself to cater to somebody else, that's going to eventually fall off and it's going to feel like work. But if you're just being you and putting out things that you are proud of, that you enjoy, things that if you were the reader, the viewer would like to see, then you're going to attract the same type of person that you are, and they're going to eat your stuff up and they're going to keep coming back. So I think first step is just to get, even if you're nervous, it doesn't have to be perfect. Put something out there, right? Because even if it sucks, you're going to be better the next time, but just be genuine with whatever you put out.
I agree with that so much. I know when I first started writing, I was like, maybe 2 people see this and one's my mom and one's my husband, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Like, this is
I
not
feel
gonna
that.
go out to a broad audience, but it made me feel so empowered to just put these thoughts down on paper and put this, analysis down on paper, and then it kind of started growing from there. And
Mhm.
really, even if you never really have or don't think that you can make it in this space, just kind of putting yourself out there and getting your
Yeah,
work out will get you noticed. People know when you're putting out good work,
absolutely.
and it's going to come back around. And I think that that's really cool. Again, a testament to everybody in the space, to all these amazing women in the space, especially yourself. Um, Guys, if y'all have any questions for Maddie in the chat, throw them in there. We've got a few more minutes before we shut her down. Um, but since the story is called, or since the show is called Her Story in the Making, we're here sharing your story. We want to hear what you've got coming up. So,
Ah.
is there anything that you're putting out or that's coming up that you're excited to share?
Yeah, so you mentioned before Off the Bench podcast. I get to do that with Brandon Carney, who's absolutely hilarious. He's amazing. He's incredibly intelligent but funny too, which doesn't always line up. So I love doing that. We have a bunch of fun things coming in the off season. I have my own personal podcast that has nothing to do with football. It's more lifestyle, which is going to be fun, that I'm excited for. And then I have some stuff in the works with offensive line that I can't actually share right now, but it's going to be some fun stuff coming up this summer.
Well, hey, as long as we know to keep our eye on you because you've got exciting
Yeah.
stuff coming up, and you are my offensive line guru who I go
Listen,
to.
I love the
So
big boys. That's where the game's won or lost. People can find me on that all day long, but the game's still won or lost in the trenches.
it's absolutely. I mentioned I worked with those at the sports bars and venues
Hmm.
and stuff. We had a lot of Arkansas offensive linemen working there as bouncers at one point in time. One of them was Frank Ragnow and Dan Skipper.
Hey,
So I can attest that the O line guys are the sweetie pies, and they are the unsung heroes of their teams.
to say the least. They're the sweetie pies. They are the protectors. They're the difference makers in all areas of the game. I agree with that.
Yep. All right. Well, we do have a question in the chat. It is from Tootsie Pop. What's your next big goal?
Man, to be honest with you, I would love to do some type of either sideline reporting, or to be an analyst that actually can break down film and explain to people. Like, I would love to be the next Greg Cosell. Like, sit me down in front of a TV and let me explain why I think that these offensive linemen deserve more credit than what they're getting. Because when you see those guys move up to the third level and they're throwing out pancakes, excuse me, like, that should be recognized. And why is that not on Sports Center? Yeah. So I would love to be able to be in a role like that. Absolutely.
Well, I will be keeping my eyes out for you because I think that you would do a stellar job at that,
Oh,
and we
thank
would
you.
love to see that. Um, I guess if there are no more questions in the chat, we're down to our last minute. So tell the
Sure.
people more about where to find you and where to follow your work.
Follow me. Oh, being on camera is so awkward because everything's the opposite direction. But okay, I'm gonna get this right. Right here at Madi Kroll. You can find me anywhere with that. With that, I keep it very consistent at Madi Kroll. Nobody else wants my name, so that's my handle on everything. I have link trees everywhere. So if you find me somewhere, you'll find me somewhere else.
And we did get Rum Boys Fantasy Network
Rum
in the
Boys,
chat. Yep,
yeah.
he showed you some love. We love to see that.
We love
Um,
Rum Boys.
yes. Everybody else in the chat, thank you so much for watching. We will be back in 2 weeks. Same channel, same time. Maddie, it's been
Phenomenal show.
an
Thank you for having
absolute
me on.
blessing having you on. And getting to find out different stuff about people in the industry. I know we shared that panel, but it was so hectic. We didn't really get to talk. So this has been such a nice opportunity to sit down and get to know more about each other. So thank you for
Yes.
coming on.
And this year we're gonna have a whole little hangout. I don't know how it's gonna happen. I'm gonna plan it if I have to, but we all have to kick it because I mean we just do.
We have to. We have to.
Yeah.
So details, I guess, for that to be coming soon. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you guys for joining us on behalf of myself and Maddie. Tune in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Oh, well, I'm on a different computer and my
You guys
clickers
just
are
get a
not
little
working
bit
the
more of
same.
us. Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.